Are athletes smarter than us?
I think they're smart for choosing exercise. This isn't normal. You shouldn't feel like this just on having from a drink. The majority of the population are probably chronically dehydrated, me included.
Welcome to the Visionary podcast, where we discuss science, medicine, physical health, and mental well-being. You've mentioned ADHD, and I can't help but to stop here. Are you implying that exercise could manage or treat ADHD?
ADHD is becoming very prevalent. A lot of people are becoming more aware of what ADHD is, but also we're getting better at spotting it. You know, in schools, in GP practices, if a mum or dad comes in and their kid is running around the room and can't sit still for 5 minutes whilst we chat to mum or dad, then
animals.
We sort of, that's a bit of a red flag as well for it. But certainly exercise can help with a lot of mental health conditions. The evidence is there. And just touching on my point earlier, we give these antidepressants that I mentioned, the sertraline and the citalopram. These antidepressants are actually called SSRIs. They're called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So they actually increase the amount of serotonin in the brain.
And do patients have to take them for the rest of their lives?
Not necessarily. They take one a day until they feel their mental health has improved. And if they've not felt any sort of improvement, we can start increasing the dose, but it's done in kind of a stepwise manner. If we're treating depression for at least 6 months, if we're treating anxiety, at least 12 months, before then considering coming off. What's interesting is that we give these medications a lot in primary care. Exercise also increases serotonin in the brain. And there are there's been a lot of systematic reviews done and randomized control trials comparing exercise with medications as well as counselling and talking therapies. So that's your cognitive behavioural therapy.
So that's why we feel good after a workout, because
Absolutely.
our brain produces serotonin.
There's actual chemical changes within the brain and in the body. And it's not just with serotonin, there's an increase in dopamine as well. And dopamine is, it's to do with our a reward system and our sense of achievement. So it makes us feel really good. You also get an increase in dopamine when you take certain drugs. So things like, cocaine, things like that can also increase dopamine. Things makes us feel
Addiction.
good. Exactly. Exercise does that as well.
Okay.
Another neurotransmitter that's increased is, or more of a hormone that's increased, is noradrenaline. So we've heard of noradrenaline, similar to adrenaline. It's our fight and flight hormone. So it increases our alertness, our attention, makes us feel more awake. Exercise does that. Yeah. Another thing that's increased is beta endorphin. And this is a natural opiate. So you've heard of opiates, so morphine, codeine, heroin, all opiates.
And this is all backed by science.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So if you guys, the lovely GPs, if you have two options to prescribe the medication with serotonin, to produce that, and the other option to, let's say, 1 hour of exercise daily. No one is going to miss the 1 hour. Why don't you just prescribe movement as a solution for mental diseases? What are the obstacles? What stands in the way of correct implementation? And bonus is to avoid the side effects of medication.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there's many complex underlying barriers to prescribing it. I think to start off with, we start off with the patient. I mean, some patients' mental health can be so bad that they can't even get out of bed in the morning. They can't function, they can't work, they can't go to school, they can't, their mental health is so bad, they can't even brush their teeth, they can't shower, they can't take care of themselves. So if we have a patient who can't even do those things, they're not going to be in the right mind space to start doing an hour of even walking, let alone running or strengthening program or anything like that. So some patients are in such a bad place they can't even do talking therapy. So even picking up the phone and talking with someone, or attending the surgery to start talking about their mental health, is a massive thing for them. So I think we have to bear in mind that the exercise isn't for everyone. Not everyone's in the right place to start an exercise program. So medications can be a good way of trying to help people get into the right headspace to then start talking therapies or exercise later down the line. So I suppose that's one thing. Another one is, I would say, clinicians' confidence and expertise when it comes to, first of all, accepting risk, and also actually giving an exercise prescription or advising on exercise. So
why? Because it's a big responsibility.
Yeah. So when we prescribe or when we do any treatment, as a clinician, you're taking on an element of risk, whether it be the risk of side effects, the risk of injury, the risk of the condition getting worse whilst we try that treatment. So there's always that element of weighing up the risks versus the benefits of any treatment plan that we give. So it's all about what a clinician is willing to kind of take on risk-wise. And what, but as long as you're open with the patient about potential risks of anything that you recommend, then it's out in the open then, and you document it down, and then you can always explore that with the patient as well.
Yeah. I totally understand that, because the chance of a patient taking a pill is 90%, but the chance of them actually forming an exercise plan to dealing with this, I get it. Even healthy people and mentally stable people like myself, starting from the morning when I put on my gear, my sports bra and my stuff, with a full intention of running at the end of the day while my child is playing in the playground, there are millions of reasons why I wouldn't do it. Including just walking into the playground and seeing a mom and having a chat with her. Yeah. That's how, like, the barriers are so many of them. It's heartbreaking. Yeah. So, yeah. Hi, I'm Hala, your host today. If you're enjoying what you see, please hit that lovely subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me and my team. Or maybe it's more now. We're still learning. We're still finding our feet. But with your support, we can build this channel. Let's take this journey together, one step at a time. Thank you so much for being part of it. So we touched on brain power a little bit. Help me understand the link between exercise and cognitive function. Are athletes smarter than us?
It's quite a controversial question. I suppose that the main thing is how would you define smart? I think they're smart
IQ
for choosing exercise.
Yeah. That's a good choice.
Yes.
But I'm thinking IQ, life choices.
Oh, I'd have to check the evidence of whether there's any studies that compare athletes' IQ with sort of someone who doesn't exercise and their IQ. But off the top of my head, I don't feel like there is a big, massive difference in necessarily IQ. But I know that, exercise, like we've just mentioned, with it increasing all those neurotransmitters and those hormones, it can certainly improve alertness, and it can certainly improve kind of reaction time and things like that. So it can certainly improve cognition, I would say. I think there's also some studies on the effect of exercise on dementia. And obviously dementia comes in many different forms, Alzheimer's being one of them. But essentially the group of dementia, it's a patient's cognitive function deteriorating. And it's a neurodegenerative condition. So as time goes on, generally the cognitive function worsens to the point where they can no longer do the basic tasks of, dressing or taking care of themselves. And there is a lot of evidence to suggest that exercise and increasing your activity levels, it actually helps improve the blood flow within the brain. And as I mentioned, it helps with neuroregeneration. So helps the brain develop more neurons and more connections. And that in turn has been proven to help prevent dementia.
Prevent.
Well. Yeah.
Okay. What if I'm already diagnosed with Alzheimer? Would daily exercise, help manage the condition or prevent it from complete decline?
So I'm not sure on the evidence behind it preventing complete decline. I don't think there's anything yet that completely prevents the decline. There's certainly things that medications absolutely that can slow the decline. But there are so many other benefits to exercise as well. I mean, from my experience with working on the wards, in the hospital, in the care of the elderly wards, and there's patients there with dementia, a big problem, particularly in the hospitals, they start to suffer with sort of attention span and boredom and not having anything to do. Doing an exercise program, one that's manageable and safe for the patient, because obviously it depends on the severity of the dementia and the Alzheimer's as well. It gives you a structure, it gives you a program of things to do, so it keeps the attention going, which can be very beneficial. On top of that, we already know that exercise improves sleep. Sleep is can be another big problem in patients with dementia and Alzheimer's. So we quite often see them being more fatigued during the day, staying awake at night, or not sleeping at all. And exercise can help regulate that. It can help the sleep-wake cycle. As we said before, it helps improve serotonin levels, and that helps to regulate sleep as well. And obviously, if we've done more during the day, we've been more active during the day, our body is then more tired when it gets to the evening. So we tend to want to sleep a bit easier. I think the big thing with exercise that, again, a lot of people forget about is the social aspect. It can be a really sociable thing.
Running groups, Pilates groups,
classes, and even team sports, whether it be football or basketball or doubles and tennis, you can incorporate a social aspect into it, and that can help massively with mental health, with sort of Alzheimer's, dementia as well. That social aspect can be really beneficial. But on top of that, if you actually incorporate social aspect into your activity, it can make it easier to do. So we tend to enjoy it more. If you go for a run with someone, a lot of people find it easier because they've just been chatting away, or they don't realize by the time they've finished, half an hour's gone by and they've been active the whole time.
And next time you're looking forward to see the same people again.
Exactly. It makes it easier. And there might be a day when you really don't feel like it. Might be a day where you just feel, oh God, I can't do it. I can't face running today. I can't face going to the gym today. I can't face going to that exercise class today. But if you've got a partner or a friend or a family member who you do it with, they can hold you accountable. So they can sort of say, oh no, come on, let's go. We can go to the class. They might be the ones that motivate you to go, and vice versa. So having that social element can also make exercise more enjoyable, more tolerable, and it can make you more consistent with it as well. So it's something to really consider. And I always consider it when I do exercise prescriptions with patients as well.
We talked about how workout makes us feel better, but I guess every experience is unique. Sometimes when I work out, I'm super energized after the exercise. I'm happy, I'm like full of energy. But on other days, I feel so depleted. And that feeling runs over to the following day. I always think I did the right thing by working out, but it doesn't always feel good. What am I missing here? What am I doing wrong?
I think you have to look at it from lots of different angles. There can be lots of different reasons why someone just doesn't feel right. Maybe they or feels tired. There can be lots of different contributing factors.
Energy. And I don't finish my run 2 inches high. Not always, sometimes. No, but kind of thing. I mean,
that's normal. I mean, it would be amazing to feel 100% of the time, wouldn't it? But it's not real life. I mean, I think the first factor is looking at the exercise itself. What sort of exercise have you just done? How long were you doing it for? How intense were you doing it? The environment you were doing it in. So a lot of people just go on their run and they don't realize that actually it's really humid that day. And they've been training in the cold all winter, and they come out into the humid conditions, and it is a lot harder. We sweat a lot more. Our heart rate goes up much quicker because we're already in that sort of hot, humid condition. We have to drink a lot more as well. It's harder to cool the body down in humid conditions as well, and hot, humid conditions. So I think the actual exercise you're doing, we have to pay a lot more attention to it. A lot of people think, oh, exercise, I'm just going to go off and do this. And, they forget that actually exercises can be really intense on the body, and it can be a big stress and a strain on the body. And we have to bear that in mind. I think as well, looking at your nutrition and hydration levels before and after, what have you been eating that day? What have you eaten properly afterwards as well? Have you drank enough to
usually
make up
not,
for the fact that
by the way, usually not.
And that's a really common thing. I think the majority of the population are probably chronically dehydrated, me included.
Really?
I really have to work hard to drink enough water. I think as a population, the UK population anyway, we gravitate a lot towards tea and coffee.
Yes,
and I see it in my patients all the time.
But this causes hydration, doesn't it?
it can cause dehydration.
Yeah.
The caffeine can stimulate the bladder and can also cause dehydration. And I see it in my patients a lot. I see patients who are tired all the time, or they come into me with headaches or dizziness. And one of the first things I ask is, what do you drink during the day? And they go, oh, I tend to drink enough. And most patients will say they think they drink enough. But the key is to really knuckle down and be like, okay, well, what have you drank today? Tell me what you drank today. And most patients will say, let's take a sip of water.
Yeah.
Most patients will say, oh, so I start the morning with a cup of coffee, and then probably about 10 o'clock I'll have a cup of tea, and then probably have 3 or 4 cups of tea throughout the day, and then we'll have my sort of evening meal. I might have a drink of water with my evening meal, or a glass of wine or whatever. And they've not had a single glass of water all day. We have to be very mindful of, is it good for our overall health? And caffeine is a drug at the end of the day. It has multiple effects on the body, which again, because we associate it with relaxing, socializing, we forget the kind of long-standing effects of the caffeine on the body.
Yes. What do you think of caffeine being put in sports supplements, whether it's to be taken before workout or after workout? It does give energy, doesn't it?
Yeah. So caffeine is a stimulant. So it stimulates the heart, it stimulates the mind, it stimulates the body. So it can improve alertness, it can improve how it can increase the intensity at which we work at. So I think as a pre-workout supplement, it can be quite good. But some people are very sensitive to caffeine.
That's me.
And I think you have to listen to your body. If you notice that when you start to drink caffeine, you feel a little bit shaky, you feel your heart rate going a bit quicker, you feel your, palpitations in your chest, so the feeling of your heart fluttering. Yeah. This isn't normal. You shouldn't feel like this just on having, from a drink.
They say that sitting is a new smoking. And sometimes getting off the sofa after Sunday lunch is a monumental task. For someone who has been sedentary for a few months now and they are looking to start moving again. What is the first step for them to do this safely and sustainably?
Yeah, of course. I mean, first of all, I couldn't agree more. I agree that inactivity is, considered kind of the new smoking. There are many reasons why we should be active. Inactivity and being overweight can increase your risk of cancer. And obviously smoking also increases the risk of cancer. And I think being active can actually prevent, I think it's something like 13 different types of cancers.
Wow.
Especially breast cancer, bowel cancer are the main ones. So similar to how smoking can cause cancer, being inactive, so I would definitely put it on par with that. I think maybe the evidence isn't quite there yet as much as smoking, but absolutely. I think for someone who has been completely inactive and hasn't done any exercise in their life, I would say the first step is to physically take some steps. Walking is a brilliant way to start becoming more active. Brisk walking to a point where you struggle to talk full sentences, but you can still talk full sentences, but you're struggling to maybe sing, for example. This can actually be a moderate form of exercise. Brisk walking, particularly those that include hills, to a point where you're starting to get warm, you can feel your heart rate going up a little bit. You're maybe removing a layer because you're feeling a little bit warm.
I've heard a brain doctor once, and I was so annoyed by that because I put so much effort into my runs, and I run for a full hour straight without stopping. But that brain doctor said that walking briskly, as if we're late for the train, for 45 minutes, 3 times a week equals running and gives your brain the same benefits. Is this true?
That's an interesting one.
I was so annoyed.
I'd like to see the study or the evidence of which he's based that on. One thing I would say is that walking is better than nothing. So being active, even the smallest amount, is better than nothing. I know with things like high blood pressure, we see the biggest improvement in those who go from being completely inactive to doing a small amount of light physical exercise. That's where the biggest improvement's seen. To get the most and the most benefits, more intense, vigorous exercise is better. This is for blood pressure, absolutely. I would need to look at all the other studies on all the, it have to be condition dependent. So again, define brain power. It depends on what you're measuring as part of your brain power. But yes, I would probably on experience disagree with the neurologist a little bit and say that no, if you are able to do more vigorous, more intense exercise, that has more benefits to your health than just walking.
That's music to my ears.
But
I love my runs.
Walking is still absolutely beneficial, and you will see the most improvement in your health between being physically inactive to just doing that little bit of walking. So don't let that put you off.
Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah.
Let's say I've completely lost my fitness mojo and I'm looking to start again. What do you think the most common mistakes that I might be making?
Yeah, I think it's probably doing too much too quickly. So quite a common thing, and again, it's sort of part of our natural human response is going back to something and thinking you can go back at the level you were at previously, and not putting in that kind of incremental,
because my brain is telling me that I've done it before, I've done it a number of times, but my muscles are not ready.
It's very sort of easy for humans to sort of say within the brain, oh, I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to do that again. Just like, well, I've done it before, I'm going to do that again. It actually takes a higher level of kind of motivation and a higher level of reasoning within the brain to realize that your body has deconditioned itself, and to actually take a step back and stop your brain from wanting to do more, and acknowledging the fact that our muscles have, and our cardiorespiratory system has deconditioned itself, and to then go back to things gently and slowly. But it does take a lot of self-control and a lot of self-restriction to do that. I mean, in personal experience, I used to do a lot of running when I was much younger. I then stopped that to focus more on kind of gymnastics and that sort of thing. And I recently stepped away from gymnastics and I did cheerleading as well. I started running again, and I would just set off, not really thinking about how fast I was going. I'd just go at what I felt was a normal, natural pace for me.
Till you get the cramps.
3 or 4 kilometers in, I was dying. I was dying, and I really didn't enjoy it. And I just thought, oh, this is...
It's a muscle, right?
Yeah, exactly. So your lungs, the lungs themselves are not muscles, but they are supported by a lot of muscles. Even just taking a breath in involves contractions of lots of different muscles, between the ribs and your diaphragm and things like that. When we exercise, those number of muscles that are recruited to support the lungs increases. Yeah. So you start to include your abdominal muscles, even your shoulder muscles. When we start to exercise and we take deep breaths in, that's a sign that all of our muscles are, more muscles are working, and they're working harder. What we forget is that when we're running, we like to run at a pace that feels good for us, but actually it can be making our body work too hard. Yeah, and one thing I would say is that if you actively just, try to run slower at a much more leisurely pace, where you can still hold a conversation with someone you're running next to, you can run for longer, which means that you burn more calories, if that's what you're aiming to do. You would tend to enjoy it a little bit more because you're not in as much pain, you're not struggling, and also you make injuries less likely. If you're not putting as much force through tendons, muscles, bones, but obviously you have to weigh that up with how long you're running for. But then also at the end, we're not completely dying, so you're more likely to go back and do it again. Absolutely. It's worth just thinking about the intensity at which you're exercising, and I just use running as an example because I can relate to it quite a lot. But obviously it's the same with anything you're doing, in any sport, any exercise. Just really focus on that intensity and just really think, do I need to go this hard for this long every single time? Because actually just slowing down a little bit can still have benefits. Yeah,
and building it slowly. I remember when my child, she's 9 now, bless her, started coming to the office from school on her own. And even going there, we cut the trip short by half. At that time, I was so busy at work and I wasn't running. It was like a month and a half, which is for me a very long time. Then I decided after school and after work to have a run. And I struggled in a way that was so unprecedented. It's not the usual struggle that you usually get after a pause. I always managed to do the 1 hour, a bit of a struggle because you stopped. But on that particular day, I couldn't finish the hour. And I was like, oh, it's aging for me. But then, no, it's simply the small trip from home to school. Then it's 3:25 running to school and collecting hair, coming back. It's not much, but that walk made a difference,
Yeah.
a daily difference in my
Yes.
routine.
Yes.
When I missed it,
Yes.
I was less fitter. I mean,
Yes.
I could admit, yes, there was a reason.
Yeah. It's amazing what the small things, the small changes, which you don't think is making much difference.
Yeah.
You know, I read something once that if you're trying to improve your 5 kilometer time, don't run 5K.
Yeah.
No. You should be running 10K plus at a much lower speed to improve your cardiovascular fitness. And then you should be doing much shorter distances, so 800 meters, kilometer runs, for example. So either 800 meter runs or kilometer runs, for example, at a higher pace than what you want to be running your 5K at. And that improves your power and your speed.
That's clever.
And then if you combine running, training that cardiovascular fitness with then, that speed, eventually you will then run a 5K, which is at the speed you want to run it. So again, I'm not a running coach, so don't quote me on that, but I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that was from a running coach that I heard that from. But so don't quote me on that, but it's very interesting to just look at those different training patterns. And it's very easy for us to fit into, to stick to a routine. I'm just going to run this 5K and I'm going to do it the same every day in the same terrain and the same, actually changing it up can improve our fitness, even if it means going less intense, but for a bit longer, can actually still improve our fitness. And it keeps it more interesting as well. So try and avoid doing the same thing every day. Unless you enjoy doing the same thing every day, then I'm not going to stop you.
Well, most of us struggle with motivation, especially at the end of the day when we have that decision fatigue and we're out of energy. How do I stay consistent with my workout? I have that very bad tendency to yo-yo with my exercise routine. I still remember that summer 2 years ago was a lot of funness when I had, in terms of nutrition, I had 2 meals a day. I did intermittent fasting, like a medium to small meal at lunch, the same at dinner. And I worked out 4 times a week for the entire summer. At the end of that summer, I was super, super fit and I reached the size I wanted. That summer never replicated itself again. So I yo-yo with my exercise a lot. How do I stay consistent and keep it going on a regular basis?
Try and just make it part of routine. So if you can, make it just part of your weekly routine. Put it in your diary that
it is there.
Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, whatever, I'm doing my exercise. And then you don't end up planning things over that time. If that's already in your diary, it's a priority along with going to work or picking your children up from school or nursery. It's there as a priority that you can't book things over. And then that does help a bit with consistency as well. The
brain responds better with routine, right?
It does. We are creatures of habit.
When you expect something to happen, you do it over and over again without thinking, kind of thing.
And it's quite helpful if, for example, you enjoy a certain sport, if you're part of a club that has a timetable of classes that you pay for. Obviously, if you've already prepaid for something,
I would
I'm going to go. I'm going to make the most of that. So that could be a gym class or a prepaid sports club, that you pay a membership for. Then that's then if you've prepaid something, or if there's a fine, for example, for not doing it.
Oh, who did such a thing?
You have no choice, but you've got to go because otherwise you'll get fined, and there'll be consequences if you don't go. So